Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brooke Jensen with your 12 o'clock news headlines. Starting off with the weather, there is a snowfall warning across most of BC, including Vancouver and the lower mainland. The storm is expected to roll in tonight and tomorrow and accumulate up to 20 centimeters of snow on the southern lower mainland and up the Sunshine Coast. The snow will be joined by strong winds and a chance of freezing rain tonight. Residents are warned against making unessential travel due to the road safety concerns. The temperature is going to be a high of 0 degrees and a low of -3, but due to wind chill, it will feel like -5 most of the day. Because of these winter weathers, there has been a spike in ICBC claims over the last few days. Our reporter, Alicia Nolasco, talks to a driving instructor on how to safely drive under these weather conditions.
ICBC reported a 160% claim increase since last snowfall on Thursday. Abdul Ali Faz Mohammed, an instructor with Van Pro Driving School, says that people should have their snow tires on, slow
hit the brick and the black ice. So avoid the brick and the black ice because the black ice nobody can see there, right? And also the snow tire is also not helping in the black ice. So the good thing is if you need to drive, don't go in the drive, especially like on midnight at the black ice situation.
Faiz Mohammed says that the city could do a better job at spreading salt around the city for safety road caution. Alicia Nolasco for BCIT The Crow.
The BC government announced yesterday that starting from yesterday, pets are no longer considered as property, but rather as a companion animal. Our reporter Chris Koo has more on the story.
The changes to the family law legislation led by the provincial government digs deeper into the process when determining the ownership of a pet following a separation or divorce. Ari Wormley is a family lawyer in Vancouver who says in a perfect world, the new legislation will be deemed kindly. However, there might be some problems that comes with it. Wormley says he has a systematic concern about the new legislation by the BC government and explains that on one occasion, his client couldn't see their child not because of the court order, but because of the lack of court time.
It's just one more issue and one more thing that's going to take up court time on an interim basis.
Wormley adds another problem it could bring is the lack of compensation the initial pet owner might face. Chris Koo, 1680, The Crow.
And Chris joins us in studio now. Chris, what does the Premier of BC say about this new legislation?
Yeah, so he says that going through separation or divorce is already difficult for couples and children. Our justice system should be there to help, not make it harder, is what the Premier said. And as you probably heard from Wormley, is ironically it might bring more problems to the court that we don't know of yet.
Yeah, and how were pets divided in the past when it came to separations and divorce and things like that?
Right. So in the past, the division for pets ownership was no different than, let's say, houses or other property. But since the BC provincial government thought that the pets and ownership, owning pets is beneficial. It should be beneficial for child's growth. That's hence why they put this legislation into play.
Wonderful, fascinating. Thank you so much, Chris. All right. So the leader of Alberta's NDP party, Rachel Notley, announced she is stepping down from after nearly a decade in her position. Notley, who was Alberta's premier from 2015 to 2019, says it was time for a new face to take lead.
I'm a bit of a polarizing figure in the province, and I think that we have a lot of really great people who are part of our movement, and I think that it's healthy to allow other voices to have an opportunity.
Notley says she will stay on as NDP leader until a replacement is selected. Nearly 13,000 teachers are striking across Saskatchewan to push the government to bargain on their key demands. The president of Saskatchewan's Teacher Federation, Samantha Becat, says classroom sizes and support for students with higher needs are among the critical issues that they want addressed.
This is something that we have seen bargained in many other provinces across Canada. So I don't know why they don't want to. Like I said, they have the funds available. They just don't have the political will. I think kids just aren't high enough on the priority list for this government to start making those long-term commitments.
In response to the demands in the strike, the province's Education Minister Jeremy Cockrell says those issues can be addressed through school boards, not through the government or the unions. Back into more snow news, almost 2,000 flights in the U.S. were canceled today due to the hard-hitting snow and cold hitting the East Coast, along with another 45,000 delayments. Reporter Alex Stone with ABC News reports more on why the snow is canceling so many flights.
Now that the cold and snow that were hitting Iowa during the caucuses have moved east, they're impacting much of the East Coast, and behind it is cold air in other areas, with LaGuardia, Reagan National, Chicago O'Hare, Newark, Houston, George Bush, Nashville, and Denver having the most canceled flights of any airports in the world today. Southwest and United Airlines are the most heavily impacted.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was at the World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos. He urged that leaders keep the Ukraine war in mind despite what the wider conflict in the Middle East. Qatar's prime minister says the world should focus on defusing the conflict in Gaza, and that would ease tensions elsewhere, such as the Red Sea. Those were your news headlines for 12 o'clock. We will be back with your sports headlines.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you...
This is sports on 1680 The Crow.
Welcome back to BCIT The Crow for your 12 o'clock sports headlines. The Canucks play the Arizona Coyotes this Thursday at 7 p.m. in Vancouver. This comes after their game against the Columbus Blue Jackets yesterday, in which they lost 3-0. Last night, the charter plane carrying the team briefly got stuck on a patch of grass. The team luckily had already vacated the plane, and there are no reports of injuries of YVR workers. Marc-Andre Fleury gets second place on the NHL career list with 552 wins. His teammates on the Minnesota Wild rushed to a group hug around Fleury after their victory against the New York Islanders. Fleury posted the clip of his first shutout of the season and the 74th of his career.
Stick save Fleury, and that's going to do it. Move over Patrick Waugh. Marc-Andre Fleury picks up regular season victory number 552 in his illustrious career. The Wild pile off the bench to celebrate as he moves into second place all-time in NHL history. As Minnesota shuts out the Islanders here in St. Paul, 5-0 the final.
Martin Brodeur, goalie for the New Jersey Devils, currently reigns as number 1 with his record of 691 wins. Philadelphia Eagles center Jason Kelce reportedly told his teammates that he is retiring after yesterday's game. Lane Johnson told reporters that Kelce has hinted about this being his last season and has been considering it for a number of past seasons. Kelce has played his entire 13-year career with the Eagles and has been a key leader for the team, making 6 postseason appearances and 2 Super Bowls. Baker Mayfield, a quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, threw for 337 yards and 3 touchdowns in the game against the Eagles, leading to a 32-9 wildcard playoff victory. Here's the call as Mayfield completes 23 yards for the touchdown.
Blitz threatened. Here it comes, and Mayfield throws it up for grabs toward the. It's caught! Touchdown, Tampa Bay! Chris Godwin! Oh my goodness! Buccaneers get a great throw under pressure and a 23-yard touchdown.
While on the topic of football and the Super Bowl, Usher has teased his performance at the halftime show for the 2024 Super Bowl. Usher, who is an 8-time Grammy winner, says he will be celebrating his 30-year career and that the February 11th show will be a celebration. The Buffalo Bills beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 31-17 in a wild card playoff that was postponed due to a lake effect blizzard. The Bills coach, Sean McDermott, says their loyal fans, or what they call the Bills Mafia, did a great job cheering on the team after the reschedulement, and after many fans were shoveling snow off the stands.
Bills Mafia showed up. I know that there wasn't always clean seats to sit on, but it didn't seem like it mattered to them. So I applaud Bills Mafia for showing up the way that they did in the fashion that they did.
Although the Bills won, putting them at a 21-0 lead, the Steelers closed with 21-17 thanks to a blocked field goal. However, the Steelers head coach said an early mistake to the offensive team cost his team the win.
We spotted them early in the football game via the turnovers. Can't come into an environment like this versus a playoff caliber team and turn the ball over like that.
That was your sports headlines for 12 o'clock. I'm Brooke Jensen.
BCIT campus where the gardening club just planted these trees. So in the BCIT Journalism program, I learned how to use the professional cameras to film our own news stories, and also the soundboards and mics in the radio booth to host shows for our radio station. I'm Kate Leno in Burnaby for BCIT Magazine.
About this program is a hands-on experience. Every day I'm honing the skills that I'll use in my future career.
That we're in a smaller group environment compared to other schools, I find that the camaraderie between like your colleagues or classmates is really good.
The reason why I chose this program here at BCIT is because of the hands-on experience. We're always doing assignments that follow the industry standards. So once I graduate and I find my first job, I feel pretty confident that I'll have the skills that I need.
This is 1680 The Crow, and you're listening to our feature presentation.
I'm Nicholas Hauka, and this is the Fall Off Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss players, teams, and coaches who seemingly had a very bright future ahead of them, but against all odds, never lived up to the hype. We discuss how they became household names, excelled at one point of their careers, and then the inevitable fall off. Over the next 3 weeks, I will be talking about arguably one of the greatest college quarterbacks and Oregon Ducks players of all time, Heisman-winning quarterback Marcus Mariota, who led the Ducks to a national championship game and was taken second overall by the Tennessee Titans in the 2015 NFL Draft. But shortly after, the fall-off began. It's 2015 in Chicago, Illinois. Day 1 of the NFL Draft is about to start. In the green room is Jameis Winston. Winston has always been highly touted, being a 4-star prospect coming out of high school, and after a prominent career at Florida State, is hoping to be selected number 1. Sitting next to him is Marcus Mariota. Mariota was almost an afterthought of the same recruiting class coming out of high school, only having 4 FBS offers. Despite that, Mariota is right next to Winston, and after what he accomplished in his last 3 seasons with Oregon, has just as much of a chance to go number 1. Who will go first? Who will go second? And how did Mariota defy the odds to get here? Rewind to late 2011 in Eugene, Oregon. The Oregon Ducks football program is riding as high as it ever has been. Under head coach Chip Kelly, Oregon is having its greatest run in program history. Finishing the previous season 12-2 and without a devastating loss to rival USC late in the year, would have been right back in the national championship game, just like the previous season.
Maldonado on the way, pulled it left, no good. USC upsets Oregon.
Hoping to continue their newfound dominance in the 2012 season, seemingly out of nowhere, Darren Thomas, starting quarterback for the Ducks, declares for the 2012 draft. Ducks and college football fans are shocked, as despite having 2 wonderful seasons for the team, he wasn't seen as pro-ready. What Ducks fans were unaware of was how much pressure Mariota was putting on Thomas during practice. Farhan Lalji from TSN, who covered that Rose Bowl game, had some insight on what was occurring during that time.
But when they got into bowl prep that year, he was making a real name for himself. And just during that bowl prep period, while Thomas was still the quarterback, you knew that there was going to be a battle the following year for sure. And, I'm sure that if the portal was available like it is now, Thomas wouldn't have declared. He probably would have just gone elsewhere.
For most fans not privy to this information, the mystery behind that baffling draft declaration would be solved the second the college football season would start. With Thomas moving on, Brian Bennett seems to be the shoo-in starter going forward. During the season, Bennett backed up Thomas and exceeded expectations whenever he filled in due to injury or late in games during a blowout victory. However, a little-known 2-star QB recruit out of St. Louis High School in Hawaii was about to make a big impression. Marcus Mariota looks to steal the starting job from Bennett in his second season as a redshirt freshman with the Ducks. After impressing coaches and players alike during training camp, on August 24, 2012, the Oregon Ducks announced that Mariota had officially won the starting position, beating out Bennett. It's September 1st, 2012. Oregon is playing Arkansas State in their season opener.
Marcus now to the end zone. Great throw. I mean, this is just getting silly.
Marcus Mariota throws 18 completions on 22 attempts and 300 yards, impressing the Ducks coaching staff and fans alike with his poise, accuracy, and decision-making. Gord Randall, TSN scout, with more.
Wow, yeah. I remember watching some of those early starts from Mariota, and one of the things that stood out was his movement skills at his size. Like, he was already 6'3" and change. You know, Chip Kelly already had a reputation for having a pretty quarterback-friendly offensive system, so they were running a bunch of that spread option stuff. Mariota was clearly immediately a weapon with his legs.
Mariota went on to not throw an interception until week 3 and led the Ducks to a 12-1 record. Mariota finished the 2012 season with a completion percentage of 68.5%, 2,677 yards throwing, 752 rushing yards on the ground, and 32 touchdowns to only 6 interceptions.
And then that freshman year blows the doors off of everybody, and the sky appears to be the limit. And so, you know, Oregon was a trendy pick for the national championship that year, and from the outset, that was the bar that was set for that Ducks team.
Following his first year as a starter, Mariota looks to put up even better numbers in his second year, which he would do in his sophomore campaign, throwing for 34 touchdowns to 4 interceptions with 3,665 yards total, while leading Oregon to an 11-2 record. Despite the success of his first 2 seasons, the biggest knock against Mariota and the Ducks was they could never win the big game against their conference rivals, always being one game away from the national championship before suffering a heartbreaking defeat to eliminate them from contention. Going into his junior year, Mariota and the Ducks were determined to switch the narrative. Heading into Week 9 of the 2014 season, the Ducks had an 8-1 record after having a lone hiccup on a Friday night game against Arizona. Now, the biggest game of the year so far, facing a bitter rival in the Stanford Cardinal, who had Oregon's number the past 2 seasons. Stanford had pounded Oregon into the ground the previous 2 years, running the ball at will, chewing clock, and making life hell for Mariota while eliminating Oregon from national championship contention in the process. Mariota was dialed in, and him and the Ducks finally matched the Cardinals' physicality in a dominant performance. The Ducks came out on top 45-16, and it looked like Mariota had finally found a way to silence critics. Other than a temporary scare in Utah, Oregon had no trouble getting to the Pac-12 championship, beating every team handily, outscoring their opponents 193-69 along the way. In Week 5, Oregon lost a frustrating game to Arizona, and in the Pac-12 championship game, they looked to avenge their prior defeat. They came out and utterly destroyed the University of Arizona by a score of 51-13, and with that victory, sealed a spot in the very first college football playoff in NCAA history at the Rose Bowl. The very first college football semifinal at the Rose Bowl in NCAA history would be a game between the defending national champions, the Florida State Seminoles, and the Oregon Ducks. The top 2 quarterback prospects heading into the 2015 draft, Jameis Winston and Mariota himself, were on the big stage on New Year's Day. 2 weeks prior to this colossal game, Marcus Mariota became the first Oregon Duck and Hawaii-born athlete to win the Heisman Trophy.
The winner of the 2014 Heisman Memorial Trophy is Marcus Mariota of the University of Oregon.
You know, winning the Heisman that year was also a big deal, and just the attention that brought to the university.
The biggest game of Mariota's career was about to start.
They'll bring it out. This is Allen, the sprinter, still loose. Can't spin free, dropped at the 20, and that's where the Heisman Trophy winner, the proud Hawaiian, will begin.
After feeling each other out in the first half, the score was 18-13 for Oregon. But then, when the third quarter started, Oregon pulled away, off of many Florida State mistakes. The game ended with Oregon winning 59-20. This was Mariota's biggest win of his career.
Previous year with Winston, and for him to go to Pasadena and win that game, the fact that they could win that game, I think, was very much a signature moment, right?
With that win, Oregon is now in the national championship, facing a red-hot Urban Meyer-led Ohio State Buckeyes. Come game time, Oregon is ready to go, but Ohio State played a way more physical game on both sides of the ball, and while Mariota did his best to lead them to a win, ultimately Ohio State came out on top 42-20. 2 days out of his most emotional defeat, Mariota officially declared for the 2015 NFL Draft and began his preparations to transition into the NFL. It will be Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota battling to be the number one pick. Next time on The Fall Off. Front offices debate on Winston or Mariota.
We're wowed by Jameis's arm talent, right? And I know that Mariota had more than enough of that, but I think that's where Jameis might have separated himself a little bit, right? Like Mariota was probably the better athlete.
And after a long draft process, finally, a decision is made.
With the first pick in the 2015 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select.
This has been the Fall Off Podcast. I'm Nicholas Hauka, and for Josh Udon, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikka-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikka-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.